Hey love, I'm Brenna Paxton, artist and oracle at astroaura.com, and here to guide you through the art of Ascension. So today I felt divinely guided to speak to you about what Ascension is and why it matters and how we can begin our journey of Ascension. So I have to begin by telling you how I first began my journey of Ascension. When I was young, growing up, I was the primary emotional and spiritual support of my family. Now, I want to mention that, of course, my perception of my reality is my reality alone. So I do not speak for my family or their experiences or their reality when I speak of my reality. And yet, I have to speak on my truth in a very clear and direct way. So I just like to kind of give that caveat that even though I will be speaking very specifically and explaining to you how my reality was, that is my perception of my reality and not theirs. Okay, so anyway, as I was growing up, we faced a lot of really difficult challenges in my family. And I truly had a lot of burden put onto me. There was a lot of emotional and mental and spiritual processing that needed to happen. And I think because I naturally am very attuned to the emotional and spiritual realms, I'm also a projector in human design, so I fall into that natural role of being a guide. Because of these things, I kind of saw that there was a gap or something missing that my family was needing. And so naturally, what does any person do? You kind of step up and fill the gaps where you can. So it got really intense even starting when I was 8 years old. And by the time I was 15, I was definitely feeling very isolated, very alone, very desperate for guidance and support myself. And even very depressed. I didn't feel that there was space for me to share my true struggles and emotional difficulties that I was grappling with, because I was already holding this weight for my family members of things that they were trying to process and things that were really profoundly affecting our entire family. And so all of my energy was going towards helping others and supporting my family. And because I was young, when this is happening, when you're an 8-year-old, even earlier, it really almost molds how your reality is formed. So it made me believe, and it created this reality for me that, one, I kind of had to martyr myself and suppress my own emotions for the greater good and the safety, the security, and the livelihood and well-being of my family and the people that I cared about. And when you're a child, your family and your home is really your entire world, because it's your entire sense of security and stability. And so it felt like a life or death situation that I tend to these issues within my family, and the gravity of the challenges we were facing were life or death situations. And so I took that on as a really intense burden and didn't even think I had an option, because again, being young, you aren't really able to You don't have a level of discernment yet about that. You don't have boundaries yet about that. Why would you? You really can't. So throughout all of that, by the time I was 15, I was feeling so desperate for guidance that in a particularly heart-wrenching moment where I thought I was going to lose a family member, I didn't know what to do. And I began to plead to the cosmos asking to both be shown what to do to help my family member, but also what to do in almost a long-term sense to ease this profound suffering that I was experiencing, that my family was experiencing, that I knew so many people were experiencing. Unfortunately, I know that everything I'm saying is not unique. Even if the details of my story, and I'm being a little vague, but I think that that's okay right now, because everyone goes through such hardships, and so many people, arguably everyone, goes through such intense isolation at times, where we can feel so isolated and so alone and so desperate for someone to see us, to love us, to show us the way, to help us feel supported and guided. And I know that most people can't get that, can't receive that support that they deserve, that belongs to them because they're alive and they're human. There's no prerequisite, there's no other requirement other than just existing for you to be completely worthy of receiving the support and the love and that validation that you not only desire, but that you need, that you really need as a human. This human experience is a trippy one, right? Very bizarre. And so when I was in this desperate moment, pleading for guidance, I truly asked, please not only show me what to do to help my family in this moment, but show me what to do to help myself. Please guide me. I'm so desperate for guidance that if someone tells me what to do, I will do anything. I will do anything right now. I'm that desperate. I will do anything without question. I want to heal myself, not just for selfish reasons, but so that I can distill this understanding that I desire to be shown, this guidance, and provide it to others, to help others never have to experience this insane feeling of profound isolation and desperation. I wanted in that moment to make sure that the guidance and the help and the healing I was seeking weren't just for me or my family, but for the collective, for the insane amount of suffering and pain that I could just see happening and playing out all around me. And you know, that was when I was maybe 15 years old. I'm 29 now. That was a while ago. And the world has only increased in its amount of pain and suffering kind of happening all around us. It's especially with the internet and the way that we're always so hyper aware of all of the things going on around the world. It truly is like such a challenging world to navigate. I know there's so much good happening right now too, but I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that the level of fear and isolation has just been amplified lately. So amplified. So there's no better time than now for me to share the art of Ascension with the world. And quite frankly, it's kind of trippy for me because I started learning this when I was 15, maybe even a little bit earlier. And now 15 years have passed, and it has taken me that long to truly understand all of it, integrate all of it, experience it in my own life, and understand it enough to then be able to figure out how to organize it and articulate it to then present it to others. And it's funny because this whole time I was thinking like, oh my gosh, this is such a long journey. I just want to share this with the world. It's taking forever though. And I can tell now that I'm right on time. This is when I was supposed to be able to share this with all of you at this time of very heightened fear and isolation. And it's kind of funny to think about the fact that I did it as absolutely fast as I could, and I did do it rather quickly, even if quickly was 15 years. So, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. When I was in that moment of desperation, I asked, right, to be guided. I asked to be shown what to do, how to help the people in my direct family, like right in front of me, how to help myself, but how to embody this guidance so that I could, in time, share it with the collective, with the world. And when I was pleading for that guidance, that was the first day that I truly heard a voice. I began channeling. I'm very clairaudient, and I really began channeling these divine directives, guidance of what to do. Oh, I'm sorry, it's so loud outside right now. I have the front patio doors open because it's a beautiful day out, and yeah, maybe there's a little extra noise, but I didn't want to close them. It's too pretty. But as I started receiving this guidance when I was 15, I didn't know what it was. But I was so desperate for the guidance that I had full faith in it and trusted that it was what I was meant to be doing and following. So I followed this guidance kind of without question. And in doing that, it built my faith in following that guidance, because it became clear pretty quickly that that was exactly what I needed to be doing. It was leading me to some relief, to some understanding, to results, if you will. And as I was going through this process, it was a very, very long journey. It's still unfolding. You can never be done with the Ascension journey. You're never done with it. I just finally have gotten to a place where I understand it enough that I can now speak on it from a really deep sense of embodied wisdom, where this is work I've been doing throughout my life and every moment of my life over my entire lifetime, and very intensely and consciously and intentionally over the past 15 years. And so what I have come to know over those years is that this is the process of ascension. And why is ascension the antidote to isolation? Essentially, we all come from the same stuff. We're all of the earth and stars. We are all one divine cosmic entity. We're almost all like little organisms within a larger being. We are not separate from nature. We are not separate from animals. We are not separate from the stars and the sky. We are all one and the same. There is no you and me in this big grand cosmic sense. We are all one. And I know that might sound a little cheesy, but it's true. And the thing about that is that the human journey is one of duality, of understanding, of learning to be an individual, to be separate, to embrace the duality of being me and you, of being separated. But it's not just that. We have to first become so separated and isolated and individual that we then begin this reintegration journey of coming back together, putting the pieces back together, understanding in a fuller way, in a more deep understanding, truly knowing for ourselves, and discovering throughout our life how we are not actually those separate individuals. So I'll say, I want to always validate that we are unique individuals with our own lived experiences, and that's very important to your path and your journey. So I never want to dismiss that. That's not a problem. That's the journey. But for the sake of this conversation, the goal really is to go from that place of duality and individuality and a sense of almost separation back into union, back into oneness, back into integration. And that is the journey of ascension. So when people think of the word ascension, they typically will say raising your vibe or increasing your frequency or something. And that is what it is, but it's also, that's so unnuanced and way oversimplified, especially because that makes it seem like the route to ascension is just to raise your vibe. And like, I'll tell you right now, like that's not going to get you there. That's not it. That's not enough. If anything, that even can be almost like a distraction from doing so much of the work that we really have to do in order to truly ascend. And that work is this deep going inward, going into the darkest depths of ourselves, facing our deepest shadows. At one point in my life, I channeled this phrase that was really potent to me. I was in a moment of extreme contraction and feeling so, again, isolated and really like sad and wondering like, why do I have to go through this? Why am I constantly going through these like really intense, extreme, emotionally draining situations? And so I asked the cosmos, right? I asked like, why do I always have to be going through this? Like, why do I have to feel so contracted and isolated right now? And the phrase that I heard in response was, how will you know what it means to expand if you do not first learn how it feels to contract? And I think that pretty accurately sums up the entire journey of being a human and this like path of ascension, because we must first understand contraction before we can understand expansion. And so because before we're born as humans, we are these very big expansive beings, to become a human, to become a child, to learn separation from your mother after you're born, all of this is really a journey of contraction, because it's contracting into the individual, separation, you and I, etc. And so then you have to do that journey first. And only after you do that journey can you then begin to ascend or return to unification with the collective, oneness in that sense. And so ascension requires a lot of descending. It is truly that journey of going as deep as you can go. And only after you've gone to the complete darkest depths, to, you know, the bottom of the bottom, can you then truly begin to rise back up out of that with a whole new understanding. It is almost like a hero's journey. It's your own hero's journey, where you truly must face everything within you, and have everything in your life kind of challenged and questioned and turned on its head in order to give you a totally different perspective. This is how we gain wisdom. This is how we gain discernment. This is how we learn who we are. It's how we learn who we are not. It's how we learn who the other is and who the other is not. And the more you do this, the more you start to see how you are not separate from the other. But it's almost like you can't ever learn that without first learning the separation. So to simply cling on to the concept of ascension being just raising your vibe is so like not very helpful. Because if you haven't first allowed yourself to truly like go to the depths and like see them and look them in the eye, and do it consciously and intentionally, and not just because you're being pulled down there by your emotions or like forced into it, but because you're choosing to go on that journey. If you don't do that first and you just try to start like raising your vibe, sorry, I'm like so over that phrase. If you just try to jump straight to that, you're like never going to get very far, because you're essentially suppressing and denying the whole journey you like actually need to go on. Yeah. So, it's all a balance, and it's all a spiral, and it's all happening at the same time. Time doesn't really exist in a linear fashion. I mean, it does, but it also doesn't. And so because of that, like, I don't want to shame you if you're working on, increasing your frequency or something, because we must be also doing that. But it is a simultaneous process. I see ascension more as expansion, where it's going in all directions, expanding out. And this is really the natural state of all energy in the universe. Energy expands. That is what it does. It is always expanding. You are energy. If you're alive, you're an energetic being, and therefore it is your destiny to expand. It is your destiny to blossom like a flower. And in doing so, expansion is not just an upward movement. It is in all directions. It is outward. It is in every direction. And it is also down and within and deepening, as well as ascending upward at the same time. This is truly what ascension is. And the only way to continue doing this is through a series of steps that, again, you're kind of always doing all at the same time, but it helps to also know these steps so you can think about them like in order. It can be a little less overwhelming if you have kind of this step-by-step process. And that's truly what I've been channeling for the past 15 years, is what is the step-by-step process of ascension. And the reason for this is because it is crucial, it is imperative at this moment in time that we consciously commit to our ascension journey. We must leave this paradigm of fear and isolation behind. It is time for us to move forward. It is time for us to fully embrace our otherworldliness. As humans, we are of the earth and the stars. We are not only physical beings, and that is an undeniable fact. And it is time for us to move on from this insanely intense period of contraction and start entering into this realm of conscious expansion. And that is what the art of ascension is all about. So the reason that ascension is so important is because when we are stuck in this contracted experience, this contracted reality of separation and isolation, it not only separates us from each other, it separates us from our own true self, it separates us from the earth, it separates us from the animals, and it causes a lot of harm. If we are, it doesn't matter if you're aware of it or unaware of it. Well, it does matter, but I'm saying that regardless of if you're aware or unaware, your life is playing out. And there will always be an impact that is created by your life playing out. If you are unaware of your actions, your reality, your thoughts, your emotions, your spiritual nature, if you are unaware of this, then the impact that you are creating is most likely harming others. So as a very easy example, we are destroying our Mother Earth. We are destroying the planet, and that is directly correlated to the fact that we have all been stuck in this very separated, isolated thing where we don't see the Earth as an extension of us. So it is imperative for even literally the survival of humanity. Not that I necessarily think that that's even relevant. Like, things are going to play out how they play out. We don't get to necessarily like decide if we get to continue living on Earth for eons. The Earth is going to decide that, right? But it still goes without saying that it is crucial and imperative that we begin fully treating the Earth as an extension of ourselves and return to that understanding that many people before us actually understood. But we've gotten so distanced from that that we're destroying our own home and essentially destroying ourselves. Same with racism, all of the rampant hatred going on in the world. This is a direct symptom of isolation and contraction and separation. And if we want to change the world, if we want to truly improve things where we aren't all just arguing with each other all the time, where people aren't spewing hatred at each other, the way to change the world is to transform yourself, to begin the ascension journey consciously in a way where you are committed to it. And I truly believe that is the way to transform society, is by transforming yourself internally and externally, in the sense that everything we do is reflected both inwardly and outwardly. So you can never just focus on one or the other. And since we are not separate from the other person, from other humans, then everything we do affects others as well. And we have to be consciously aware of both of those things. So the first step in the art of ascension is awareness. I'm going to just briefly overview these because each one requires a lot of diving into it, right? There's sirens going off outside, and I've always had sirens be kind of an indicator to me of a confirmation, like a spiritual confirmation or validation. So yes, I'm glad I'm telling you this right now. So the first step in the art of ascension is awareness. The second is alignment, aligning your actions with this heightened level of awareness, both internally and externally, both personally and societally. The next step after awareness and alignment is transformation. Simply the act of aligning your actions to your heightened awareness can transform things. But there are also mental thought forms and programmings that you've picked up from society and from living your life that need to be transformed. There are also emotional programmings or emotional imprints that need to be energetically transmuted. So transformation is a really key part here. Then the next step is integration. So in transmuting and transforming and aligning and doing all of this that we're doing while we're constantly being aware of everything, all of this we have to do in many different dimensions and facets. We have to do it like in relation to all of the elements. Everything kind of comes down to the elements. So earth, fire, air, water, and ether. Ether being that cosmic divine energy that allows the other four elements to exist and be within it. So when we're integrating, we have to have this awareness, alignment, and transformation on all four of those levels. And then that also directly correlates to like the physical body, the etheric body, the emotional or astral body, and the mental body, which is what the experience of being a human is, are all of those layers, those different bodies that we have. And then not to mention that we also need to do this across timelines and dimensions. So all time occurring at once means that there are all these versions of you that are existing in these other kind of dimensions, and they're kind of like stuck there when they experienced a trauma or a really intense pain. Parts of ourselves fragment off, our soul fragments off to protect itself, and that does protect us and serves us in the moment when the trauma occurs. But if that trauma goes unprocessed or suppressed or ignored, then that part of yourself is anchoring this reality that is existing and operating within a really traumatized set of beliefs, programmings, and emotions. And that part of you is always going to be there in you until you find it and give it what it needs in order to reintegrate it. This also goes for past lives, different dimensional lives. So integration is really this very expansive thing because it's speaking to the most micro and the most macro, where it's the many different bodies, the elements within our bodies, the timelines that we exist within, the lifetimes that we have, ancestrally, even akashically, as some people would refer to. I usually say astrally when I mean akashic. And so this integration process is really about that awareness, alignment, and transformation on every single little level and dimension. And the more you do that, the more you reintegrate yourself and integrate and integrate. And as you integrate and as you integrate, the bells, the chimes are now outside, yay. As you integrate, you are able to then get to this level of embodiment. And embodiment is truly the goal, or like the final step, I suppose, in the ascension process. But again, you know, like, you're never done with this. We're constantly going through all of these phases all the time. But embodiment is truly like being so integrated that you have the space, you're able to hold the space of being both your most astral self and your most earthly self at the same time. Embodiment means being so integrated that you're capable of holding your astral nature in your earthly body, allowing your highest self to sit down in the throne of your physical body and almost like exist in multiple places at once, where you are astral and earthly at the same time. And this embodiment, truly being able to be embodied, brings about the result of sovereignty. Sovereignty meaning true I'm like trying to like send you the vibe of what I mean right now, but how do I convey this in words? Sovereignty being this independence, but not in the way that we think of it in an earthly way, because it is this royal, like, you're the only one that can control you. Like, you are embodying your divine power in a non-hierarchical way, not power over others, but embodying your truth and power so profoundly that you radiate this regal, sovereign energy that can't be controlled by others, that understands being fully of service, that understands how to be of service but have boundaries, how to respect yourself and the other. All of the paradoxes there really exist within sovereignty, because it's the ability to be earthly and astral at the same time. It's the ability to be an individual but to know deeply that you are the collective at the same time. It is the ability to always be of service while also always receiving in turn at the same time. And if people could really commit to going on this journey of ascension, so this whole journey is the ascension process, and kind of the end and goal of it is embodiment, with that result being sovereignty. If we could all go on this journey to get closer to sovereignty, sovereign beings do not spew hate out at each other. Sovereign beings do not try to control others, do not try to exploit others. Sovereign beings understand that they must care for the earth. So sovereignty and the pursuit of sovereignty and the practice of, on a daily basis, being committed to the art of ascension is the way to transform society. And as a bonus, it's also the way to alleviate you of all of the suffering and isolation and sadness that you have been feeling. If you feel a sense of cosmic existential heartbreak, it is because you have been so separated and isolated that it is now time for you to begin your journey back to source, back to oneness, back to understanding how you are not separate from the collective. This is the Art of Ascension, and I am thrilled at the opportunity to be able to share it with you. It has been my life's journey, my life's mission. I have committed my entire life to this process and to being able to understand and embody and articulate this process so that I can share it with you. And it is truly an honor, and I'm overjoyed that it is now time for me to be able to actually share it with you, and that we can do this practice together. So I know that you might see this at any point in the future, but the October 16th, 2020 new moon is just around the corner, and I am going to be starting truly teaching the Art of Ascension and the way that I apply it to every single day as a way to help keep you accountable without overwhelming you. Because I know that when you're feeling low and you are looking for guidance or support, there's now like so many tools out there. How do you figure out which tools to use? How do you figure out where to begin? That can be very daunting and overwhelming in and of itself. And then even once you do figure out how to begin, it's like, how do you keep up with it where you're not forgetting about all these things, but you're also not beating yourself up if you're not doing enough of it? You know, like, I don't want that to happen to you either. So the reason the Art of Ascension exists and the reason I put it into a daily practice was a way to kind of alleviate that extra stress from you. You already have enough stress put on you. You don't need your guidance and support out of that stress to also add additional stress to you. So with that being said, the Art of Ascension works with all of the tools that you desire to use that resonate with you. The Art of Ascension is more like a framework that you can mold to fit you, and I'm going to be guiding people through that both on Instagram and in a free Facebook group, and I'll be sharing plenty of content everywhere, all over the internet about it. But I will include in the links or description to this video where you can find me so that you can begin this journey and this process of ascension with me and together. And I would be honored to guide you through that journey and make it a little bit easier on you, and hopefully alleviate some of that cosmic heartbreak that you might have been feeling. So please reach out if you resonate with me. I offer plenty of sessions also as supplemental support to the Art of Ascension, such as soul retrieval and reintegration, aura sessions, and astral light healing, tarot guidance for ascension support, etc. So if you feel a resonance with me, then we are super cosmically connected and we are meant to know one another. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Sending you so much love, friend. I love you. Thank you for being here. I'll talk to you soon.